Good afternoon and welcome back once more to the EduWeave Online Education Expo. And we are going to have another very interesting panel discussion. Before we start, let me hand it over to our student volunteer, Aditya Menon. Aditya, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm having the job to introduce our moderator, Manoj sir. Manoj Silkat is the director of the BSCI. He is the CEO of Flexi Partners, 14-year-old HR consulting firm with operation in India and the Middle East. Manoj is also part of the regional training team of BNI Bangalore. He's a passionate speaker and has been a public speaking coach for the last 20 years and the founder of the School of Public Speaking. He helps children and adults become confident speakers through his online public speaking programs also. So I welcome you, sir, to this conversation.
Thank you, Aditya, for this. Thank you so much, Aditya. Let me take this time to introduce our dignitaries here who are going to talk about this panel. So this panel is all about technology and how it can support in education and schooling. So we are two of them who are very close to us in terms of we've been connected with them for a very long time. So let me take this opportunity to introduce first Dr. Mohit Hegde. Dr. Hegde is an electronics and telecommunication engineer by qualification, and he carries a large experience in providing consultation to educational institutions on using ICT to deliver quality educations to students of many institutions through his company, Creative Infotech. He has to his credit the award of Digital Educator of the Year in the year 2016 by a leading management institution which was awarded by Dr. Narayan Murthy of Infosys. Dr. Hegde was awarded for his work with Visvesvaraya Technical University for setting up the first Apple Center of Excellence in India through his company, the Creative Infotech. He has been awarded the doctorate for his research and contribution made using technology to deliver education by a leading international university. He is a dynamic leader with a history of success in EdTech leadership, strategic planning, process mapping, public speaking, team building, mentoring, and training. As a technical director at Chaman Bharatiya School, Dr. Mohit advises the schools to set up enterprise-class Wi-Fi, guide the design and delivery of Everyone Can Code and Create initiative, which provides various opportunities for students to strengthen their 21st century skills and digital literacy. A very warm welcome, Dr. Hegde, to this event. Thank you so much for joining us today here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Let me introduce a very big mentor and supporter for us. He has been with us right from the time we started the first EduWeave Expo. And we've had the privilege of having him in the panel every single time. He was our keynote speaker last time as well. So it's my privilege to introduce the director of Chaman Bharatiya School, Ellen Anderson. Originally from Denmark, Ellen has over 4 decades of experience as an educator and over 3 decades of experience in senior administrative positions in Denmark. Ellen is a visionary leader in the field of education and believes that preparing students to succeed in a rapidly changing 21st century environment begins in schools. He is a founder and principal at the globally recognized Ørsted School in Copenhagen, Denmark. The school was the first to globally go 100% digital and has been visited by eminent personalities, including Prince Harry. Ellen currently is a director of Chaman Bharatiya School. Ellen and Dr. Mohit, absolutely wonderful to have you both in this panel. And thank you so much for joining us. And a special thanks to Ellen and Team Chaman Bharatiya for supporting us as EduWeave and as a community of Bangalore schools for the last 2.5 years. And they're also the co-sponsors of this expo. So let's get into the discussion first. The first thing that we've all been talking about is how has technology impacted education, especially after the outset of pandemic? I'll go with Dr. Mohit first as the expert in terms of technology and schooling. You've seen it for 20 years in terms of technology and education. Did you see anything change in the last 1.5 years? If at all, what has been that change, Doctor?
I think it has been a very difficult journey. If you look at what's with technology and education, technology has always been away from education for a very long time. and pandemic, it has been a disruption for education. So the whole approach for today, the way institutions look at technology is very different when you look at a decade or 2 decades back, when we had to really force in and talk about technology. So today, the acceptance is very different. Today, we are in a forum which would not have been possible if technology was not there. And you can imagine the potential, what it has got, and how the whole industry has transformed. So I say pandemic is definitely a great disruption for education in the way we learn, and and the philosophy of we're talking about learning for life. I think this is a medium through which this is going to happen, and I feel this is the most exciting time of the blend of technology and education.
Wonderful. As a technologist, I could see that excitement in your voice when you say that there is so much of opportunities coming up there. But
Yes.
let me hear from the educator here. So, as an educationist with so many years of experience, Alan, I think this is a completely different shift that we are seeing. So, how has it impacted? I mean, how have you evolved in terms of this, and how has technology helped in this journey?
Yeah, first and foremost, we would have had no school for 18 months in India without technology. So that is a very important experience, that learning could actually take place without the physical environment of a school building. I'm not saying it's just as good as offline learning, but I think it creates a change of mindset in all schools, that if this change of learning environment can change, how many other changes can happen in schools? I mean, we have talked so much about the necessity for change in education, to be more aligned to the 21st century needs. But to be honest, not so much has happened. A classroom is still a classroom, a teacher is still a teacher, a blackboard is still a blackboard. But suddenly, with this experience, I think the field is much more open for discussion about what is the future of education. How can we ensure that every learner, without exception, develops his full potential? So I think that's the most important thing with the COVID experience. And of course, we can discuss screen time, we can discuss mental health and many negative sides also. But I think for the future of education, this is the most important experience we have.
So to try to understand, Helena, you're trying to say that this has become a blended part of education going forward. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, for me, it's very crucial that we personalize learning much more than we have done until now. With the classroom, we always will lose the best and lose the weakest students. With technology, it's actually important to differentiate. It's possible to personalize. So I think a combination of online activities, tech-based activities with offline activities is the best solution for K-12 kids. Because I think the physical nearness in a classroom, where you can have discussions, where you can work together with your classmates, where you can learn from grown-ups with experience and so on, it's more crucial than ever. But that doesn't mean that all activity should necessarily be the same kind of activity. So I think we can have much more engagement, much more differentiation, much more variation with more use of technology.
Okay. Alan spoke about just touched upon the part that there are some negative sides, including the mental health part and all that stuff. I totally relate to that from an educator perspective. But I also always wanted to ask a technology expert: do you see any negative sides in blending technology to education? Mohit?
Definitely, but it comes towards pedagogy side. It comes towards like what Alan mentioned about personalizing learning. So it's going to be a very difficult space especially when it's online. You have 50 students in the class. How do you connect with every child, right? So that's very important that the connection still remains with every child. So creating a personalized environment and giving him to learn in the way he enjoys learning is a very critical point which we need to address, and research is going on that. But if you can provide an environment of learning where this can we facilitate it to the teaching community, it gives you a opportunity to really connect with every child. And that's what technology can do. It allows you to connect and create a portfolio for every child, and you know his pattern of learning, and then you provide him opportunity of learning in that environment. And that's what we bring on, on table through the solutions what we, present. So definitely technology has got a very important role, just like the adaptive learning, right? So when you're writing the examination, adaptive question paper allows you to prepare question papers in line with the knowledge of the child, right? So that in a similar way, technology can play a role in helping the institution to connect with every child in the way the child wants to get connected and be evaluated. So that's what technology can play a role.
Wonderful. So
I have an important thing I want to add when we talk about the negative sides, because I want to turn it around and say, yes, there is a danger of digital dependency. Too much screen time is not good. There's a lot of negative things happening in social media and so on. I know all the negative sides that has been mentioned in the discussion in India about digital technology. But my point is that we prepare children for a digital world. So if we don't learn them good digital habits in school, they will never learn them. So we have to invite the technology into the classrooms with the knowledge of all the dangers that are also there. But if we don't handle the dangers and teach the children how to handle them, how to develop good habits, how to know when to use technology, when not to use technology, and so on and so forth, it will never happen. If you look out at the children's parents, they look into their iPhone or Samsung phone every 3 minutes. They haven't learned digital habits. So we need to teach our children to be better than their parents when it comes to digital habits.
So you're adding another completely new perspective to it, where you're talking about digital etiquettes or social media etiquettes or even technology etiquettes for that matter, which is never taught, which we never thought needed to be taught in school. So you're saying that it should become part of the education as such, is what you're saying. Okay, so I just want to ask that part also, Alan. When do you think is the right time that we start? At what age? When do we start this for the children?
From when they first have a smartphone or a tablet in their hands.
Which is today from pre-KG. Which is today
from at home, we need to discuss with the children. I have grandchildren. I know that if they are allowed to, they will play all the day. They will never get out of the screen. So it's important that parents talk to them about it, create rules about how to use them and how not to use them. And we should do the same in school. They should not have a digital gadget without sharing their experience and getting a framework from their parents and from the school.
Okay.
So whenever we give them a digital gadget, we should talk about this.
Okay. So one of the questions that also came up when we had submitted a form to our members to see if there are any questions that they wanted to have, Dr. Mohit. And many of the parents had suggested some questions, and we had framed some of the questions based on that also we wanted to ask. One of the questions that came up was that we are trying to keep our children away from gadgets. And that's been something that we are trying to do. And between me and Sandhya, we've been constantly discussing. You go to a restaurant, the father and mother are sitting and talking or drinking or having a food, and child is sitting on the other side watching a YouTube video, being fed without even realizing that the child is being fed. So that's a level of digital addiction or gadget addiction some children have gone through. Now, parents are worried that once technology also comes in, would that not add to the addiction which is already there? I want to hear first from the expert. Mohit, is that a real concern? Is that something that you guys are worried about too from a technology side?
Actually, Alan is in a better position to answer that, because that's the engagement where he gets feedback from the parents. As a technologist, I will always say that when is the last time did you go to your bank to fill up a form or update your passbook? That's the evolution which has already happened.
Correct.
And for everything there is a good and a bad part of it, right? So we need to know how do you define that. So that definition is something, which we will have to cope up with and learn out of it. But today, if you don't have a gadget with you, you're not breathing. So that's how the world is wired. And that's how we are wired today, right? So we need to know that we have to be a part of it. And while educators like Aaron should provide us the guidelines, in terms of how we should be using it. So both are important, but educating them early will allow us to be, them to be better than us. The way we are behaving with the gadgets around, it is very, very insulting when you are sitting in front of somebody and you are looking at your phone. There is a disconnection, and
Correct.
we unknowingly do it, and that's not good, but we do it. So how do we evolve, and how do we create a curriculum around that and ensure that we are bringing those etiquettes into the kids? And there is definitely a huge curriculum which can be followed, and we can really adapt to this in a manner where it will be acceptable to the humanity, right?
Got it. So Alan, what are your thoughts? How much is too much there?
Yeah, first I would say digital addiction is absolutely a valid concern. If we look at the total screen time of many children today, it may be too much. But I think the concern should be addressed to the right place, and the school is a structured environment. So in school, we'll create a framework for the use of digital gadgets. In my school, we will have a variation of offline and online activities. We will not sit with the iPad all day. I think physical movement is crucial to modern children. So in schools, we will create rules, but at home, there might not be rules. So I think it's important that parents look into their own habits and their own behavior and say, are we a good ideal for our children? Or should we also put down our smartphone now and then? And in schools, I can guarantee we will do it. But there's one important thing, and that is, I don't think there's a way back. Because the digital learning materials we have is much more developed than the traditional textbook for schools. And we have, on top of that, all the websites, all the videos on the internet. So if we say we will not have digital gadgets in school because it's dangerous and it creates dependency and addiction, then teaching will be a lot less engaging. So it is a balance between using all the possible creative and engaging things in the digital environment and balance it out to screen time and mental health and addiction, and find a good way in between. And I think schools will do it because they are used to regulating the behavior of children.
But the balancing act.
The concern is valid. I will not discuss that. The concern is valid.
So the balancing act is what you're talking about, Alan, there in terms of how much is too much or kind of working on. So the one question which I have is, since you've been talking about this becoming part of a curriculum or this becoming part of the way of life in a school for a child, is it something that Chaman Bharatiya is working on or already has implemented in kind of bringing, I would say, I would start from, say, digital literacy and then getting into the etiquette. So is that something that Chaman Bharatiya is seriously working on, or is it already being there in part of what you're doing, Alan?
Yes, we were taken by surprise by COVID. So we have only been online. So therefore, we have been totally dependent on screen time, so to speak. But it's something we do now. Now we have 6th and 7th graders, and we'll do when we open next week for 1st to 5th graders. So ensuring that we have analog activities in between, that we control screen hours of the children and see and address it if it's too much. And if we can see most of screen time is at home, then talk to parents about it. And maybe you should do something else with your children so that they don't spend so much time. So that is actually built into our curriculum. So I have had the strange experience, because in Denmark, I have for many years been a spokesman for more digitalization of education. And as you rightly said, we were one of the first schools in the world who were 100% digital. In India, I've said, okay, maybe we have too much optimism with what digital gadgets can do for education. Maybe we should balance it out to more offline activities, more focus on mental and social well-being. I'm a spokesman for finding a good middle ground.
Okay. So one of the things which I wanted to kind of understand right from a Chaman Bharatiya perspective also is that, Dr. Mohit actually initially suggested something close to that, because it all depends on the pedagogy and curriculum that you're following. So at Chaman Bharatiya, you already have a pedagogy in place. We have had these discussions earlier also on how you follow that. How has technology been an enabler to that, Alan? How has technology been an enabler to your pedagogy that you're following in your school?
Yeah, I will mention one good example. I think we had in spring an online project, because it had to be, where the children worked on a project with the topic sustainable community. They defined a problem in their community they wanted to solve, and they worked with other students from other classes who had the same passion and wanted to solve a similar problem. And they created, they learned about the problem and created solution. And we used technology for collaboration. They could work whenever they were ready to work. Of course, we organized lessons where they should, but many of the students worked in their free time with their classmates on the project because they were so engaged in it. So collaboration is an important part of what technology can do. Then at the end of the project, we had a digital expo, just inspired from the kind of expo you organize. So the children presented their products for their parents and people who had been involved, external persons who had been involved in the project. So they learned about using technology for presentation, and many of them created solutions where they used movie clips and audio clips or photos or whatever they could use. And we hadn't taught them all of it because we hadn't had time for that, but they just learned it themselves, because when you give a child an iPad, they will learn very fast. So communication, another of the 21st century competences, is also an important part of what digital tools can help you do. And I could mention many other things, but I'll stick to this. So I think one thing is important in India to say, and that is, when we talk about digitalization of schools, we don't talk only about coding. Coding is important, and we have built it into our curriculum right from grade 1. But coding is only one part. They must learn it. It's a modern language, so they need to know the basics of that language. But coding is, the digital tools is all the creative apps and the creation of apps, of course. So to learn about all what digital tools can do for creative solutions is important. And we have only seen the top of the iceberg. I'm sure that when we have the children in school, they'll come up with so many ideas about what they want to do. And I'm sure that technology will be part of it, because they will have their iPad with them everywhere. So it's a notebook, it's a creative tool, it's their learning materials. So when we ask them now to turn off their iPad, they are a little angry, because how can we ask them to turn off the iPad? It's their iPad and they use it and they have to use it, and it's serious. And it is often, not always, but mostly. But we have to be firm and say, okay, but we have a a bigger view, it is an important tool, but we also need to do something else where you move around and where you look into each other's eyes and where you have a heart-to-heart conversation.
Right. I'm very happy that, Alan, you brought up this point, communication, and that's a change maker that is going to come, because I've been a public speaking coach for 20 years, and COVID brought a completely new perspective. And in April, I launched the first online public speaking program. And people ask me, can you teach public speaking online? Because this is like coaching swimming online. You can't teach swimming online. So how can you teach public speaking online? But I can tell you, when I did the last batch in July, and then I had taken a break for some personal reasons, I had completed 55 batches of online public speaking program with more than 650 children benefiting from it. So I think it would not have happened if it was not for technology. And I think you brought in a very valid point there, because the moment we say technology, digital, people immediately bring it to a coding or doing that. There is so much more that is there. And I'm very happy that you brought up that point there. My question to Dr. Mohit, right from where Alan took off, because the kids are with their iPads, their gadgets, etc. Are we going to a future without textbooks and notebooks? Are we going to a future which you see there?
Yeah, it's a very, very debatable question, because it's been going on for years. The writing skills, there are so much of debates happening on that. Just before that, I would like to add to what Alan was mentioning about giving the child to learn anywhere, anytime. Technology also has a very important role to play when you have, say, 50, 100, 200 iPads in the campus. There is a complete managing of these devices happening in the background, which is opaque for the students. But there is a huge manageability which happens just like a corporate environment. So, with the Apple deployment which is there, the possibility is huge that we can manage these devices seamlessly. Let it be 100 or 1,000, or there are schools having 25,000 iPads, and still they are managed. So sizing also becomes very easy because it's a technology deployment. There are tools which can allow you to do that. This happens in the background. So when Chaman Bhartiya was launched online, it was complete. Even the orientation was online. So that's how it has happened. So technology played a very important role for us to have devices with every child, and that's how it happened. So coming back to your question, Manoj, what were you specifically asking me for?
In terms of what is the future? Are we going to see these gadgets replacing the textbooks and notebooks?
No, people might differ, but in my opinion, I think that's the way it is going. Because we had iBooks, a couple of years back, and the bookstores. We have more than 10 million books in iTunes View, which has been published by professors all over the world. So it's a completely new way of learning, and people might have different opinions, which I see that, but these digital books are very interactive and it can be created by professors, and it can be circulated seamlessly anywhere. So I think the future looks bright for digital books than the regular traditional books.
Okay, so I have 2 children at home, and both are very avid readers. And I was checking with them on one of their birthdays that, okay, why don't I go and pick up a Kindle or something for you? And they said, no, don't, because unless I smell that book, it doesn't feel like a book. So I hope some of us are still there. I don't know if tomorrow you're going to come with the technology when the new book is launched. It also comes with that, Dr. Mohit.
Yeah. We never know. The kids are so innovative, like Alan mentioned. They come out with new ways of doing things. We might have some kid coming out with some app, which can do that. Yeah. There is a mosquito repellent, by the way.
I have some thoughts about this, Manoj.
Yes.
I think textbooks in schools will be substituted by digital materials because they can be updated frequently. They can have not only text but pictures and movie clips and websites built into it. So I'm convinced that compared to the traditional, very often very dull printed textbook, the digital textbook will be much better. So I'm convinced that in schools it will happen gradually. When it comes to reading for fun or studying, I'm not so sure. My personal experience is that I have an eye disease, so I couldn't do without digital reading. I even have my iPad to read aloud to me because I can do that. I can't see the mistakes I make when I write, and because I can get my iPad or my Mac to read it for me, I can still work and do the normal things, even though I can't see my own mistakes. So I think it would be helpful for many kids with learning disabilities as well, as that they can be part of the normal teaching when we have digital materials. On the other hand, I'm a reader since I was 5 or 6 years old. I've been reading all my life. So for me, it's a big loss not to be able to sit with the book. And I can also, from my own experience, see that when we read difficult textbooks, non-fiction books, it can be difficult to get an overview of what you're reading, the logic of the text. And we still haven't seen a solution for this problem. It's perfect for fiction. Audiobooks is so successful all over the world. In Denmark, no book is published without an audiobook version of it. So it will come gradually, but we have our Joy of Learning program, and it is built on physical books. And we also want our children to develop their handwriting skills, not so much because they need them. My only thing I do with handwriting is my signature. And it will, I mean, it will be an outdated competence in the future, I'm convinced. But some research results say that it's important for the brain development, that you get this feeling of movement of your hand when you learn a word. So because of that, we have said, okay, for writing and for the Joy of Reading program, it's analog materials. Most of the rest are digital materials.
Wonderful.
And that's where we are right now, and it might change in the years to come. But for me, it's not a war between off and online materials. It's all about getting the children to read and learn. And if they do it better with paper and pen, fine for me. If they do it better with iBooks and websites and movie clips and Khan Academy or whatever, fine for me.
So you're talking about the blending part, which I really
I am, yes.
So it is all about the pedagogy. It is all about the methodology. It is all about the parent intervention, all of them, and then you blend it together in a form which is both offline and online, depending on how you need it. And that's a very interesting point there. And the one thing which I really loved there, Ellen, is when you brought up that topic of it's spreading out its wings in terms of people with learning disability or anything can utilize this technology. So I was just coming to Dr. Amit Mohit on that. In terms of how do you think technology can really help? Because we know for one fact that it has reached to the remotest corners of the country, wherein people did not have an opportunity to go to a school. They walk through jungles, travel the rivers. We've heard all that part, but people are able to go online. So what do you think technology can do in that part, especially from the scope of people, of maybe people who are not able to go to school, and also talking about the affordable technology part also there. Dr. Mohit?
Yeah, just to share with you, India is the world's largest MOOC consumption country. So when you say more the massive open online courses, we are the largest consumer, one of the third largest consumers actually. So if you look at the way the learning is happening, is already changed. And today through videos, kids are able to learn and come out with skills. So what is that which is most critical for the next generation is what type of skills do you have, and what type of products can you come out with. It's no more about just learning the foundation. It's about going and creating a product. So if you're able to reach out and provide that information across, and people can try that out and even get a small job by learning that particular skill, I think that's where it all begins. And once you see that you're able to create a skill by learning in that format of a video, you are encouraged to do much more. And I feel that's the change which will happen. And India being the largest young resource in the world, we have a very large responsibility towards helping every child to have that skill. So as we are talking, new skills are coming up, and are we basically bringing that across in our delivery, at least ensuring that those foundations are built in the children, is the question we ask educators. And reaching it out today, you are able to, your video is going to be seen by hundreds of them who missed out to watch now. But with that, they will be able to take that message along, and and drive from there forward. So the medium is already there. It's up to us how we will bring the right information into that particular medium and understand how much of absorption can happen through the delivery what we bring in, is the thought process. So every teacher needs to be a broadcast center. She needs to broadcast her knowledge through this medium, because no more we're going to watch only TV. So each one of us, can broadcast in the way, like you said, confidently, you went and trained 600 odd kids. Now that is disruption, right? Would have never thought about it, before pandemic. But after pandemic, each one wants to try it out, and it works. There's a school like Chaman Bharatiya, we started off with no physical presence. It could not have been thought about. So yes, it is reaching, but there is more responsibility for every educator. I'm looking forward for people like you, who came forward with something which was never available in the way you delivered, to come out and do this for many more kids. Now we have a very large population who is looking forward for that confidence, which can be brought to them, and they get skilled.
Yeah, I think that maybe the most important investment in education India could make would be 4 and 5G connection in all villages of India.
Yeah.
Because it will be very expensive to get quality education to remote villages. But actually, when first the digital connection is there, digital education is cheap. So it is possible to bring digital models or hybrid models to the most remote areas of India with the help of technology. And I think that is an important takeaway from COVID. It's actually possible. And I'll say one thing about it, and because it has surprised me as an educator through so many years, I didn't think that all the schools who have done online learning would have been able to do it. Many schools who have no experience at all with technology did it because they had to. So there are so many potentials in the existing schools that we didn't know were there. Now we know they are there. It can be done. So much more can be done than is actually done right now.
Absolutely. So it took us by surprise, Alan. You're very right, because I still remember March 17th was a day when I was in office, and we decided that, okay, let's take a break because we look at lockdown. And March 17th was the last day that I went to office. I've been working from home from March 7th. I still remember the day because that is a very, I've never been to office after that. And we shut down our office and we've been working from home because we were all taken by surprise. But the point that you brought in, Dr. Mohit, in terms of the educator part, and I'm very sure some of the schools were prepared. Some of you who have seen it, like Alan, who have seen it in other countries, or Dr. Mohit, who have seen it evolving. But these teachers, many of them, and I think we should actually stand up and appreciate the commitment of some teachers, because they did not have technology. They have never done nothing. Now that we are prepared for it, though, now that we have seen it for 18 months, some of them have evolved as Zoom experts and technology experts. How do we train them now? What is in for the educated? Like you said, they need to be broadcasters. So how do we ensure that there is enough infrastructure to train these teachers also? Because earlier probably Ellen was interviewing a teacher on her skills in writing in a whiteboard. Today it is not what you're looking at. So how do you train them as a technology expert, Mohit? What are your thoughts on that? How do we equip our educators for what is ahead of us tomorrow?
The teachers who are viewing this, I think it has been very close to my heart, and I've been doing it for a very long time. I have in Bangalore, we basically train more than 1,500 teachers, and that goes from K-12 to higher education. And I basically feel that is the most critical component of the institution, where you empower the teachers. Empowerment of the teacher allows you to create an environment which is the current industry requirement. So continuous empowerment of teacher is a requirement. Okay, and when I did the technology maybe 10, 15 years back, people said, why do I need to do it? My children are already scoring 100, I don't require to use this technology. But trust me, during that pandemic time, I had one of the forums, I had a lot of teachers coming and, thanking, saying, Mohit, it was really those hours what I spent for professional development and, understanding how to curate my lesson plan using technology and how to generate that curiosity using technology really helped them when they went online across to do it. And even then, these devices play a very important role because you have multiple topics of digital interface or apps which can be bought on the screen, and you can really run through the lesson plan by creating excitement in the class. See, if you look at the study made by Apple, there's something called Apple Classroom of Tomorrow Today, where they saw the large number of dropout is because of they're bored in the class. So how do you keep the class really engaging? How do you generate that curiosity in every child? And that's the role the teacher needs to play. And, for which if we give the tools to the teacher and prepare them in that environment, yes, definitely today, like Alan mentioned, a lot of them have gone online, and they are teaching online, but are they really able to go deeper into, really connecting that lesson plan with the child? That is the question. Now, that part is where, we will require efforts to be put across, and forums like this can really help them to evolve every lesson plan at a deeper engagement and identify the skill of every child and record every passion of every child and make it available as a data for tomorrow for the counselor to know where this child needs to go. Everything digital, but that requires, because the center of the whole thing is the teacher.
Absolutely.
And empowering her and giving her the right environment and giving her something which is transparent. It should be like a chalk and board to her, but she should be able to do magical things with that. And that requires to empower. Yes, professional development is a very critical component. And if you look at Chaman Bharatiya, they did it 1 year before the school started. They had empowered their teachers. They had prepared their curriculum and everything was in place, and it was, like you said, pandemic, we never knew it's going to come in, but then they were ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does Chaman Bharatiya do this? So that's what I'm trying to understand.
For us, the implementation of technology is closely connected to our pedagogy and curriculum. And I think to really get most out of technology in schools, schools need to change their pedagogy and curriculum. So Mohit talked about empowerment of teachers. I'll also mention empowerment of students. Because if you don't want to change the way learning takes place in school, you can do the system you have right now. Then teachers can put away their iPad or computer and do what they always have done and get the points at the exams that they normally get. So first, if you really start personalizing learning, if you really start having collaboration as part of your pedagogy and problem solving, and therefore have the need for inquiries into the real world, then suddenly the need for technology becomes crucial. Because when we had our students back, we had some discussions about which websites were they allowed to visit. And first, in the beginning, we were very restrictive, and they came and said, how can you ask us to do projects without Google? We need Google because we need to find information out there. And that was a good example. And we said, okay, we can see that. Of course, you need to be able to visit Google. But it's just to say that if you change pedagogy and want more collaboration, more inquiry-based learning, then technology will come as the answer. So for us, we didn't start with technology. We started with our learning goals, our curriculum, our pedagogy, and then we could see that we couldn't do it without technology. The other thing I would say is that what we have seen during COVID in most schools right now are the first rookie steps of online learning.
Yeah.
To be honest, most of it has been very boring. It has been classroom teaching on Zoom and Teams, and therefore not so engaging for many children, and many have not attended. So I agree that we should applaud teachers and schools, but we also need to admit that there's a long way to go. There's so much more to learn about digital pedagogy. So teacher training must be an integrated part of the development of schools, and teacher training of digital classroom management, digital resources to engage the children more, digital creative resources, and so on and so forth. So yeah, much has been achieved, but there's so much more out there to make education more fun and engaging.
Alan, that brings me to a very, very interesting question that had come up in the group also earlier. In terms of the context was that, okay, can everything be taught online? So the question was more in terms of, okay, you could probably teach languages online because it's perfectly fine. The child has to sit and learn the languages. You can do it. But how do you teach science? How do you do a laboratory experiment at home? The home doesn't have the pipettes and the burettes that you need to kind of do this. So how does a parent ensure that the child learns online on those kind of things? And I'm very sure, like you said, we were not prepared. We did not know what to do. We were trying to do classroom teaching in Zoom, and many of the children who did it last year probably missed it out. So do you think that there is a way we can blend that part also, wherein or do you think that for science the child has to come to school in the lab and do it? What are your thoughts, Alan?
Yeah, but I think nothing can substitute real labs, but there are really fine digital tools developed, for example, in my own country, in Denmark, where you can do very advanced experiments, more advanced than you can actually do because of the dangers in a lab. So the technology is there in the whole virtual environment. We will see new formats coming up where you can do very realistic experiments digitally. But I will not do it if it's not necessary. But I talk about a future with much more hybrid education. And I think in India, it will be a thing we will see, that some schools will only have schools for 3 days a week. The rest of the days will be online learning at home. And in a context like that, digital labs will be crucial. Also because they can make so many mistakes and can repeat the experiment again and again. There's no, it's not only a time slot in a timetable where you have 40 minutes for an experiment. No, if you are engaged, you can have the whole evening with the experiment. We have even seen in my country that through digital tools, you can access university labs, real labs, but do it digitally without actually visiting the lab. So, so if you ask, can we do everything online? I would say nearly, but we shouldn't. We shouldn't. But I think PE is still as crucial as ever, not at least in India with all the diseases we see in India. And real music with real people is also crucial. But we have seen through COVID that throughout the COVID period that musicians have actually played together.
Yeah.
Music can also happen, and we have done it. But I think in music and in drama and whatever, you need to be with people. So they are not the best subjects for online teaching, but all the academic subjects can be taught online. But my point is, for K to 12, we shouldn't do it if we can avoid it. But if it's better than the local school, we should definitely do it.
Wonderful. That gives an opportunity for people, like we said, anywhere. So it's opening up the doors for everyone to do this. So when you said that digital labs, that's an opportunity that a lot of children, a lot of schools don't have labs at all in the first place. So maybe that opens So you're speaking about that hybrid model, and that's something that has been intriguing a lot of parents in terms of this, because many of them are still not very sure if to send the child to school or not to send the child. So there's a lot of discussion happening there. How is Chaman Bharatiya planning this hybrid model? If at all it is being planned, is there a hybrid model in place, or is it something that you're talking about?
Yeah, but the hybrid model we have in place now and will have for grade 1 to 5 is not the best solution, because it's a solution where some of the kids are in school and some of the kids are at home, and we don't have separate teachers for both groups. So we have to do it at the same time. That's a challenge. And we have found solutions where the students, for example, in grades 6 and 7, have online buddies at home. So they support their body at home with what's happening in school. But that's only a temporary solution as long as we have to do both, because the families are reluctant. But later on, our hybrid model, in the beginning at least, will be within a normal school day, that we will have online sessions where they work with differentiated assignments in an online setting, so that the teacher has time to talk more in depth with some of the children at the same time. But I'll not exclude that in the future, especially in high school, we could have a model where the learners work from home, because for some academic subjects, it can be more efficient for many students. They focus on one thing. The boys are not disturbed by the girls in class they have to look at. And there are many things that can make learning online quite efficient for academic subjects. But for me, it will be an experiment where we take step by step, not one big final solution.
So interestingly, we spoke about the 4 pillars of education so far. Dr. Mohit, Alan knows it a little bit, but for your information, EduWeave is an organization or an entity that stands to bring together the 5 pillars of education together. To us, they are the educational institutions, the educators, the students, the service providers, and the last one is the one which I'm bringing to, because we spoke about all of them. Educational institution that Alan spoke about, a service provider that Mohit is supporting in terms of bringing technology there. We spoke about the students, we spoke about the educators. The last and the most important pillar in the whole system is the parent. And that's the last system that I'm bringing in. Now, I know that Chaman Bharatiya is a school which believes in parent-school collaboration, and you have quite a lot of initiatives working together with parents, bringing them as part of the ecosystem and not looking them as an external part. And what is the role of the parents in the whole thing? And many times the parents have come back and said that it looks like we are just the providers. We just need to buy that phone, buy that gadget, and we don't know what is happening. What do you think, Alan? What is the role of a parent in this whole transition of a model which you are saying a blended model,
Yeah.
or the future of this? First from you, Alan, what is the role of a parent?
We want our parents to be part of the school community. And that doesn't mean that they are only there to support what we are doing, but we want to include them as much as possible. We want our children to work on solving real life problems. And in order to do that, we need the parent community to create contacts, to be connected to many places in the environment where we don't have contacts. And of course, it can be done with our learners visiting a company or making a study trip, but sometimes it's not possible. So therefore, the digital connection with the parent or with the connection to the parent will be crucial for our problem-based learning concept. And of course, right now we have only been able to do it in a very limited way because of the online situation. So we want to do it much more. But this is not only an online thing, but online means that parent can be a resource for the school, even without traveling a long way to the school. If we know that we have a parent working in a lab at a university, for example, then it might be possible online to have a contact with that parent, talking about what they're doing and helping them with the project they're working on. So for the problem-based learning, online is important both in the contact with parents, but with the contact all over the world. I have a school I know in Cambodia called the Liger Leadership Academy, and they succeeded in creating a satellite with the help from professors all over the world, because they didn't have anyone who knew about satellites. So the children just got in contact with professors from American universities and other universities. So I see digital connection as important to bring parents and other stakeholders in the community closer to the schools, to open the gated doors of the schools, so that schools can be an integrated part of the community.
Okay.
Manoj, I just want to add to that, if you can add yeah. So I just remember, when Alan spoke about the community, which is the parental community, even before the school started, there are a number of forums which was conducted by the school where they showcased the classroom to the parents and the kids together. And we had these forums, I remember when we had quite a few of them, where we ran a project-based learning exercise, and where students involved in that, and they saw the clear impact of technology along with the pedagogy delivery. And that's where the engagement started. So even before the school started, the community was engaged, and they continuously take feedbacks, which allows, to really add to the pedagogy, what they bring across in the classroom. So I feel the community is a very important component, because when you're going to invest additional investment for a child, the ownership of that and concerns, all these things has to be addressed. And that was done very well in Chaman Bharatiya, as far as my memory goes, because I've been engaged with more than 15, 20 schools, and they're at different levels of engagement. But Chaman Bharatiya is a very exclusive engagement, because everything happened in pandemic, and there was no physical contact with anybody, and the whole deployment happened, and it was running. So it happened because of the pre-planning, which was done very well, the professional development for the teachers, the community was informed very clearly. So they knew exactly where we are going to, and the parents were always well informed about how much we can do and how much we will try and how much we'll go ahead and do. That was the reason, I felt that confidence of the community came alive.
Thanks, Doctor. I was just coming to that itself. But my last question to Ellen is that what would be your advice to parents? Because I definitely feel that there's quite a lot of, there's a mixed group. Some of them are very comfortable, some of them not. Some of them are not decided, they have no clue. So what will be your advice to parents on this whole blend of technology, online, offline learning? What will be the advice to the parents, Ellen? You've got so much of experience. You've seen technology internationally. You've seen the change happening here. From that experience, what will be your advice?
My advice would be to consider the world we live in and the world the child will be living in the future, and say, how can we prepare for that? And if you have that reflection, there's no way out of implementing technology in schools. You can't create a niche of the past when you want to prepare for the future. So even though I share the concerns, but I think there's no way out of that schools should take technology in and prepare for a digital world, because the world is like that. There's no job anymore, not even in India, not even in the countryside, where technology will not immerse.
Thank you so much, Alan and Dr. Mohit. And I suddenly realized that we've just spent the whole 1 hour in discussing, and I didn't realize that time has passed. So it was very intriguing and interesting to kind of understand some of the views. And thanks, Dr. Mohit, for coming in, because it was very important to know the technology side also from an expert side. And you've been working with so many schools over so many years. Thank you for bringing in that aspect as well as a perspective. And a big thanks to Alan and team, Chaman Bharatiya, Pallavi, Sandhya, all of them over there, for being the consistent supporters for us. So that's very important, because this entire community has been built over passion. It has not been built over commercial interest or business. It has been built over passion, and only can grow and evolve only when we have supporters like Chaman Bharatiya supporting us in each step. We have faced our challenges in the last 2 days in the expo, and they've been with us in terms of understanding it. So thank you, Alan, for that. And a big thanks to the team out there. Please pass my regards to the entire team in Chaman, because they've been so supportive. They've just been our pillars every time. And again, this is the third time you guys are participating with us. So big thanks for that. And to all the visitors who are here, to my teen volunteers, both Aditya and Rohit, for watching it up here. Very clearly said, Alan, Aditya is joining us from a different city, and we are discussing the topic right here. So I think the world is getting closer with technology than.
Yeah.
And we look forward to getting more closer. So look forward to more interaction with both of you later part also. Thank you once more, and we will take a break now. Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you for moderating, Manoj.
Thank you. See you, Alan.
Thank you so much.